Did you notice the discrepancy in the readings? Author of the first reading was Luke. Author of the final reading was Luke. The first reading says Jesus came to the little church, the disciples, on the eve of Easter, of the day he rose, and bestowed on them the Holy Spirit. The other reading, the gospel reading, says, because the gospel reading says that he did that, the Acts of the Apostles, the first reading says, 40 days later he came to them and said, go out into the world and I'll send you the Holy Spirit. Two different scenarios from the same author. That proves to us, I guess, that the Gospels and the other writings are not meant to be history in our sense of the term, chronological history, just tell me the facts, that kind of history. It's trying to explain the church's belief in Jesus. And it's interesting that in both of the readings, the similarity is Jesus says to them in one, go back into the city. And in the other reading, it says they continue to stay in the city, in the temple. You would think that they would get out there and preach the gospel, get on the road, cover the whole world, which eventually they did after Luke says they 9 days later received the Spirit. But I think for us, the important thing is not the chronology, not the actual history of the events, but the commands given by Jesus. Jesus didn't say, go seek a quiet place and commune with me and my Father. He said, go back into the city. And the city is, as always, is a place of activity, bedlam, people, all kinds of things happening. And in the other reading, he says that they were in the temple constantly. Now, the temple in Jerusalem wasn't like an adoration chapel in the St. Anne's or some other parish. It wasn't a quiet place to go to pray. The temple was a place of bedlam. I mean, sacrifice was going on all day long. Lambs were being slaughtered in a very noisy way, I'm sure. And people were talking and singing and praising God. And then there was a whole place in the temple where you could get together and talk religion, the Solomon's portico. So that's where they went. They went back into the place where religion was important, and they gave witness to Jesus. And as we know from other readings in the Acts of the Apostles, they were arrested for it, beaten for it, and sent and condemned for it by their authorities. But I think the message there for Christians today, for us who are the descendants of those first Christians, is that we need to do two things. One, we do quite well. I think we go to prayer. We seek God's presence. We try to listen to his voice by reading the scriptures, by praying in quiet, by going to periods of adoration, by gathering like this for the celebration of the Eucharist. But there's the other side of it. We are also commanded to go back to the city, to go back where the action is, where life is being lived by our brothers and sisters, and give witness there to this risen Lord. Not by preaching, but by living in the way that he showed us and taught us and commanded us to live. And what was the main thrust of Jesus' life and teaching and commandments? It was taking care of others. He said, love each other as I have loved you. But when you get down to the nitty-gritty of that, it means taking care of the needs of every single person we have the opportunity to take care of the needs of. Bad English, but you get the message. That's the Christian message. Once they see how we love, once we see how we are concerned about others, starting at home in the center and rippling out, then people will get to know Jesus. But the preaching of Jesus without the actions of Jesus will always fall on deaf ears. And the mission of us Christians is not to receive the Christ only, but to dispense the Christ to everyone we come in contact with. not again by preaching, but by living the Christian way, the Christ way. And so as we draw to the end of the Easter season, more and more the things we have been celebrating are zeroing in on us, on each one of us, that we live out the Jesus event, because he's not gone. He's just gone from sight. He's still in the world because he's in us.